Okay, it says it's live. While I take my last sips of coffee here before I have to talk. Okay, you can see I have my morning time mug a la Pam Burnhill. So, good morning. Let me know if you can see and hear me. Oh, thank you, Haley. Yes, I love my new space too. It's so nice to just be able to turn the camera on and it's like, okay, look, I have a window and it's white. It doesn't make me look sick because it's orange. All right. So good to see you all here for this set of workshop series. And so this series is like a deep dive into particular aspects of Work the Plan. So last year we did a set and we kind of tried to whirlwind through the entire Work the Plan program in, I think it was 4 workshops, and it was a lot. And so instead of doing that again, I thought, you know what we need is just to spend a little bit more time digging into some of the particulars in Work the Plan that really sometimes trip us up. Or that it's like, if we iron out this piece, a lot of the others will just fall into place. So this weekend, we will be digging into week day, however you take it. That's today, that's right now. And then later this afternoon, we will do a weekly review all together. So we'll just walk through the process and I'm going to be telling you what to do and you'll just do it. So it's active, hands-on, not just listening to me talk, but actually doing steps along the way. Because I think with weekly review, the biggest hurdle is really just getting that practice. So it's familiar instead of feeling like you're missing something. And then tomorrow morning, we will talk about and actually do a minimum viable planner, because planners are one of those things where it's super handy. And basically, we need our plans written down outside of our head, and then we need to look at them. And that means a planner. But it's so easy and so tempting to overcomplicate the planner that we need to just like dial it back, get a bit of perspective, and put together something that works for us right now, knowing that we will be able to refine it, like that we're not handcuffed into this being our forever planner. We need a starting place and then get practice with it so that we can improve it based on the way we know we work and what we know we need, and not what Pinterest or Instagram said our planner should look like. So that's a brief overview of this weekend, this set of 3 seminar workshops. And so today we are going to dig in right now to the prep week, formerly known as break week. But you know that expectations are key in our planning attempts. And it turns out that the name break week sets our expectations up for a bit of a letdown, because it turns out that we don't get a vacation week every 6 weeks. It's more like the old quote, a change is as good as a break. And this is the same idea. And so instead of calling it a break week, where we feel like, okay, this is my week where I'm entitled to a break, and they know this is actually a pause on the normal work, go schedule, so that you can step back and get a little perspective and make sure that you're set up to go strong for another go session. Yes. Okay, good. Just the name change has helped me so much. That's good. So, the name change credit goes to Katie Finlayson. Finlayson. I'm not sure how the emphasis goes on her name, but she's been in Convivial Circle since the beginning. It was in Convivial Circle where she shared that she changed it from break week to prep week was like, oh, okay, that's brilliant. And so with permission, I have I've changed the course over to using the term prep week, which by itself makes sense. It's a week to prep for the next interval, the next set of plans, but it's also a handy acronym. So PREP is an acronym that is prepare, restore, evaluate, and plan. And those are the 4 basic things that we do during our prep week. That's where our attention goes. Those are the things that we are doing during a prep week. Now, I think that what most of us want, myself included, is to be told how then to fit it all in. That, well, okay, so I have this to do and this and this and this and this, that these are the things that need to happen or that I want to happen, and they don't fit during a normal interval. So that means they go into the prep week. And then it turns out that my prep week starts off already overcommitted. It's like, how many people have done that? Me too. All the time. So we have to scale it back, and we have to realize that there is no secret planning magic that makes the time expand to fit in all that we want to fit in. So it's not about trying to get it all done. It is about choosing the top priorities to make sure that you get those done. And then if other things fit in the cracks, that's great. But planning and organizing time management is really about looking at all those options, all those things calling for your attention, and being able to prioritize and put your attention in one place where it needs to be and get that done. Instead of, sometimes when we have so many different things on our list, then we get scattered and we think, I've got to get it all done if I see 20 different things on my list, and then I'm trying to keep them in my head, and I'm trying to like work on them mentally while doing something else, and it just lends itself to that scattered, crazy feeling. And when we say we want to get organized, I think for most of us, it's not necessarily about the labels and the neat and tidy corners and closets and cupboards, but it's actually about calming that mental mess and being able to focus our attention in one place and know that we are doing what we ought to do, and that there will be time to get to the other things that are important, and to be able to set aside consciously and intentionally the things that just don't fit, and be able to be okay with that. So, yes, so that's what we're going to do during this session for a prep week. So how many of you, I know I heard that some people, this is their prep week, so it's a little bit late, but you can maybe not be planning an actual prep week, but kind of use this as a retrospective and say, well, what did work and what didn't work during this week? For those of us who have a prep week coming up, I think we should actually plan it out here together. So we're going to go through a process of preparing for a break week and planning. See, I caught myself. And planning for a prep week so that we can go through that process of choosing and prioritizing and coming to grips with the fact that it's not going to all fit and it's not going to all get done. It is what it is. Yes, mine is the first week of April. So I thought that this was probably a time where Most people are kind of coming up close to one, probably. Spring break is in different places have a different spring break, but it's probably somewhere around here. So what do you think we do to start off? If we have a prep week coming up and all the thoughts are swirling, we are at the end of an interval with all the mess that entails, with the dust in the corners, the order is unraveling and becoming more and more obvious. We're ready for a break. We're ready for a change. We want to hit refresh. We want that reset button. And the answer is always a brain dump. That's right. So, yes. So, brain dump. And this is, so don't use any of the print-offs yet. Just on blank piece of paper, scratch paper in your brain dump notebook, write down the things that you would love to have happen during your break week. No matter, even if you know it's not going to happen, if it's something that you are thinking of, write it down because you want it out of your head and on paper. You don't want to cut it off in your head only and say, well, I'm just going to delete it before it even gets onto paper, because that's actually not an effective way to clear the mess in your head. If it's the mess in our heads that we want to clear, it has to all come out onto paper first. So, so don't hold it back, or don't think, well, I know this isn't going to happen, so I'm not going to write it down. Write it all down and get it out of your head. You don't have to do it all. The brain dump is not a commitment. Just get it out of your head onto paper. So Erica asks, this particular break week or anytime I have a break week? You can do it either way. It's for the brain dump is really anything that's in your head, get it out. So if it's something where you have that feeling like I should be able to get to this during break weeks, or it's this really needs to be done right now, something like putting away the snowsuits. For us, they're washed, but they're not put away. I'm like, okay, that's going on my brain dump for the next interval. That's not something that is going on any regular list, but that is something that has to happen soon. And then there are the things that I always wish I could do during all prep weeks, like make a 6-week menu plan, maybe buy all the meat and put it in the freezer for that menu plan, or get some meals in the freezer, make some kind of day trip or do something fun with the kids. And then maybe if you have, do something fun with the kids, like what, and put a few ideas. So this is just getting as much out of your head as possible surrounding what you want to have happen during break weeks. I keep saying break weeks, prep weeks. So whatever is in your head, whichever, if it's general break weeks, prep weeks, or this particular one, the next one for you, get it onto paper. What are some of them that you're coming up with already? What do you have so far? Nice. Reset the schoolroom, playroom, clean all the bedrooms. Woo! That's a summer project, not a break week project for our house. Back up the computer, pick up the cow from the butcher. Nice. That'll fill your freezer. Seasonal changeover of clothes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Deal with all the paper, house cleaning. Yes. Easter menu. Good. A lesson plan, paint cabinets, books reorganized. Oh, the clothes swap. I know. Maybe that's the nice thing about the later winter. The clothes swap is not yet in our future. So it's like, whew. This is usually the time of year it's like, well, do I need to do that during our spring break week off, or can I postpone it till the next, when we're done with school? It's usually borderline. It's not too borderline this time, unless we get a heat wave. State required portfolio summaries. Nice. Yes, deep clean of the house, plan a garden. That sounds like fun. All right. Bulk bake breakfasts. That sounds good. Visit grandparents 5 hours away. So a trip is in there. Good. So these are all the kind of things that prep weeks are great for. There are things that don't fit in a normal day-to-day kind of week. But all of them take time. And it turns out that time is still a limited thing, even during prep weeks. So we have to choose. How many of you have done a time budget, like on a week scale, looking at a week and done a time budget activity? Of course you do, Stephanie. Stephanie does a special one for prep weeks. Why am I not surprised? That's awesome. I mean, we have to think about our time, because it's so easy when we're making that to-do list to think that I can pick 3, I can pick 5 and pick them, and then it turns out they just don't fit. So we have to actually look at and evaluate the time available. And something like reshelving books properly and doing a seasonal clothes swap and visiting grandparents that takes a car trip, like that's 3 things, but you don't get to just pick any 3 or any 5. You have to look at what kind of time commitment are each of these projects. And do I actually have that time? And do I have that time in the right place with the right resources also? So, so your time budget is really a way to evaluate what chunks of time you have available. So on the one hand, it's a planning tool, but it's a planning tool, not that putting things on a time budget makes them happen. I don't know. I think if you've tried it, you've realized that. But I think that a lot of us go in and try it that way, at least the first few times. And then maybe it's tempting to think, oh, time budgets don't work for me. And I'm like, well, just putting it down onto paper doesn't change anything about time or the way that we use it, right? The real benefit of the time budget is actually to look and see how much of your time do you actually have and in what kind of chunks. So before we move from the brain dump to a plan, you have to have a calendar at least, and you have to have an idea of the chunks of time available to you. Because if, for most of our prep weeks that happen during a school year, there is usually still piano lessons, still the club programs or the sports programs or whatever it is that we're doing, driver's training this last in the fall. Those sorts of things are still on the calendar. So it's not like a prep week is automatically all my time. And I have experienced a lot of frustration in my life from going into a week thinking, this is my week. I'm going to do with this week what I want. I don't have to do school. So therefore, now I get to do all the things I want to do. It doesn't actually turn out that way. Turns out I'm still the mom. People still need to eat. People still get their clothes dirty. There still has to be laundry done. When I'm cleaning one part of the room, the kids are somewhere else making a mess in a different part of the room. So that like deep clean the whole house is a total pipe dream. You could put that on your brain dump list, because brain dumping is just getting out what's in your head. And then you need to see that on your brain dump and say, what are all the pieces that go into that, and break that down. And then just look at the reality and say, yeah, there's a reason why that hasn't ever happened, is because it's actually not possible in 1 week. So a huge part of preparing for the prep week is actually mental preparation and preparation of our expectations, so that we can put our attention in the places where we will get the most bang for our buck. Because we are not going to be able to get to the place where all of our ducks are in a row. All the things that we want to have lined up are going to be perfectly in order, so that then we can start the most beautiful school week or whatever the next week. That's the ideal. And we are looking for those things that will help us get set up for success, but we're never going to be able to get to all of them. And we just are not going to be in a place where the house is entirely clean and our school plans entirely planned out with everything in order and ready to grab and go, and all the books neatly ordered, and all of the meals already prepped and in the freezer. A few of those things can happen, and doing any of that is going to help, but you don't have to do all of them to be ready to go. So you need to pick the things that are going to help you most, that you have time for, and do those. Because then the other temptation is to say, well, I can't get perfectly ready and set up, so I'm just going to spend the time watching movies, just maybe baking cookies and reading or whatever the whole week. And a lot of time on my phone, or a lot of time just basically frittering away the time, because it's not going to be what we want it to be. And so then we take a break, and it's not a chosen set of things that's actually going to be restorative to us. It's more like shutting down and disengaging, which is usually not helpful in coming back engaged and ready to go. Maybe a little bit, but not in the way that we often think. When we say we need a rest and a break, there are things that we can do that are more likely to help us come back to our work refreshed. And a lot of times what we choose to do is go into tune-out mode, which doesn't help us come back into engaged mode. So we want to avoid both extremes, like frantically trying to get everything done and just completely disengaging and thinking that, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to rest, which means just doing what I want to do or nothing in particular. So now where we have the brain dump, and we're looking at our calendar to see what actual time chunks we have and what we need to do. So we have to get from the brain dump to having time to do some specific chosen, deliberately chosen things that are going to help us be ready to jump back in, engaged and ready for the next interval. So by now, hopefully you are done with your brain dump. I bet that more things were still spilling out into that. So now is the time to pull out this checklist. And of course, you can use any paper to do something similar with, but this is handy. This is the beginning of narrowing it down, but this is still more like a template and you're not committing yet. So we're going through a gradual process from brain dump to our prep week plan. So first off, the things that are on your brain dump, draw a line through any that you know are not going to happen and are just completely unrealistic expectations. And if you need to, draw a line and then maybe instead make an amended version. Like if you had deep clean the entire house, like just scratch that right off and maybe put something like clean behind the toilets or dust. Something that you know is not going to happen, but it would really help your peace of mind if it happened, if you did do that task. Something that would take an hour or less to accomplish. So if you have something huge on there, like deep clean the house, or maybe plan next school year, eliminate that and replace it with something that would take you about an hour, maybe 2, to accomplish instead. Something that might move you forward on that path, or that would be the piece, like when you say deep clean the whole house, you can think about it and say, well, what is the part of our house right now that's driving me the most crazy? It's like, maybe it's the kitchen, maybe, just pick one aspect and see where that gets you. But this is still the brain dump list. So then what you're going to do is you eliminate some of those completely unrealistic expectations and maybe break those down into different things. Then move over onto this, which only gives you 6. So you only get 6 items for each category on here. And that's still a lot, but this is narrowing down, right? You're going to pick the things and pick the most important things, so the things that you want to have happen the most out of your brain dump. And then you're sorting here. You're choosing the best options available from your brain dump and putting them under the correct heading. So let's talk about these different headings for a prep week. Prepare can include many things. So preparing, a lot of times, a big chunk of my preparing time is actually wrapping up some of the last pieces from the previous interval. So if I had something that I wanted to have finished during that interval, usually it's not quite finished. And so one of the things that I want to do during my prep week is wrap up those loose ends. And so on something like this, which is like your template, don't put specifics on here, put category. For example, the deep clean the house, right? That's our unrealistic expectation. But doing some kind of extra cleaning job that would help us feel a little bit more in control, be a little bit more prepared, get at least a little bit, get something into a better place. So I would put that under restore, because you're restoring order, going back to returning to order. I would put deep clean one area, where of course area is not even like whole kitchen, but like counters or floor, or maybe that cupboard that's really has issues under the sink. One area. So I might put choose one area to deep clean. Prepare, then I would have up under prepare, wrap up project loose ends. So prepare is what you need to be ready for the break week and for moving forward. Then restore is returning to order, refreshing, renewing. So that's kind of the biggest category. So restoring includes extra cleaning. Restoring includes also taking time to rest or to do something fun with the kids. So you could put something on there, like that might be when you can get your hair cut, or when someone said a massage, maybe shopping, go a park day, a day out with a friend, arrange a play day with another family, do a day trip with the kids, visit grandparents, something like that, where it's outside of the house is often very nice, but it's something where you're not just restoring the house and the organization, but you're actually restoring yourself, giving yourself some space, and restoring the connection and relationship with the kids, doing something to just connect and do something together that maybe there's not time for during a normal school week. Then evaluate is the time where you look back at the previous interval and do an assessment. And that really should be like a brain dump and not just a thinking exercise where it starts getting all tangled in knots in your head again, but actually putting it out, brain dumping it all out onto paper. So definitely you should have brain dump the last interval as one of those things on there. And because unless you learn from what has happened, learn from your experiences, you're not going to be able to build on that. So I will look at my planner and think about how well I used it, how often I used it. If this is where I start noting like things that I'll change about it for my next planning session, which is coming up, right? I might evaluate and go back through kids' writing or their math, or anything that needs some deliberate attention and thinking through goes there. Maybe there's something that you have to discuss with your husband. Note that down. And that would be an evaluation exercise. So maybe you schedule a date night or something where that's both restoring the relationship and also you get to have some dialogue about where things are at in your life right now. Yes. So then a lot of times, even though the two P's are at the two end, a lot of times plan and prepare actually kind of go together. So plan is then planning for the future, right? And that is the big picture thinking, making some decisions, getting the planner set up, making sure that everything's on your calendar for the next interval, and you've kind of wrapped your head around things, made some lists, you're getting your mindset and your notes and your calendar up to speed so that then you can just go and not be worried about losing pieces. So it's kind of that collect everything back up. If you've been doing just by the skin of the teeth kind of weekly reviews, then it's really just like the planning piece for a prep week is really like a weekly review on steroids. A weekly review that instead of taking half an hour, takes maybe 2 hours. And you make sure that your calendar's up to date. You update any planner pages. You get yourself and your notes, your lists, your mindset wrapped around what has to happen for the next chunk of time. And then that gives you a clue then as to what to put your attention on with prepare. So prepare, I see as coming a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end, because a lot of times preparing starts off by wrapping up some loose ends from the previous interval. And then it's also preparing by getting ahead on a few things, not everything, but doing a little bit to get ahead. Just a little bit though. I always really, I have a strong desire to get ahead. That is almost constantly frustrated and confounded. But it just appeals to me so much. So if I can just pick one small thing instead of trying to be ahead in all the things, then I get that reward of feel like, okay, I'm ahead in this little thing, and actually having something prepared while not feeling that pressure of getting ahead in everything all at once. And that's kind of going back to realistic expectations. And really the reason why I would love to get ahead on all the things is because I don't want to be in maintenance mode. But maintenance mode's actually better, and it's what I'm supposed to be in most of the time. And I need to learn to love maintenance mode, not try to hustle right now so that I can be lazy later. Because that's really what I would like to do, is just get it all done right now, so that then later it's like, whatever, I don't have to do anything. That never happens. Never happens. So, yes, every little bit you do is undone by the time the next prep week comes around. So that's why you need another prep week to come around, right? It's never ahead, permanent. It's never done completely. So some examples of preparing would be menu planning for the whole interval, or doing a grocery shop that really restocks your staples, so that grocery shopping, not that you don't have to do it, but it's way easier. Or big time, like once a month cooking does not really work for us. Although I've tried it, it just doesn't really work for us. And anymore, see, I used to like double a dinner recipe and put half in a freezer. That just doesn't work because, one, I'm not actually putting in that much time most days in the kitchen for dinner. And also then doubling what we already eat for dinner is, anyway, that doesn't actually work very well for us. It's a lot of work. So instead, it's just recognizing the season of life that we're in and the time available, and saying, well, what worked at one point in our life isn't working right now, and that's okay. So I need to focus on choosing meals that I can pull together faster. Maybe they don't freeze as well, but that's fine because I don't need to be freezing them. Or what I've been doing for the last year is just cooking ahead pieces, like pounds of ground beef. I can listen to an audiobook. I can do other things while the ground beef is cooked, because actually ground beef can take a long time to cook. So it's great to have done ahead of time. That's a pretty big time saving on a weeknight meal if that step's already done. The onion's chopped, the beef is ground with an onion. That the payoff, and then it does take more time to cook a bigger batch, but not that much more. And I can usually do something else while that's going on. So like cleaning a certain part of the kitchen or something. So doing that, or poaching and cutting up and freezing a bunch of chicken, making so that maybe even putting in, like if I have some ground beef, and making up chili packs or some basic. So I have at least maybe 3 freezer dinners, but not thinking like I'm going to freezer cook for a whole month, but recognizing, all right, you know what? But if I have 3 in the freezer, then that's good enough. And that would be helpful. But it's really about preparing for the next interval, not like for forever or for once and done. It's like, what can I do this week that will make things smoother in the next interval? If that's making some kitchen shortcuts, like that's where you put your focus. If it is, well, I know that we're having house guests, so I really need to put attention into the guest room or whatever, if you have a guest room, or the kids' bedrooms, because in 2 weeks, when it's a school week and people are coming over, like I'm not going to have time then. So I've got to do that now. So that's why it goes along with the planning step sometimes, because you can see as you plan where you can choose to do a few things or one thing that will make the next interval smoother or easier. So then you have kind of a template with this, and hopefully maybe you don't even have all 6 from every category filled out. I have a rough blueprint idea that I start from. That's like, I'm going to clean something and meal plan, do some food planning or prep. Take one, make sure there's at least one thing on that calendar that is a break. And the resetting the planner type thing, like reserving a chunk of time for planning stuff out. So then you have kind of a blueprint, a template, and you have to then look at your week, your calendar, and use that. It's the time budget mentality. Even if you don't have a time budget per se, or even if time budget, you've tried it and it hasn't worked, you don't really get it yet. The basic concept and the reason why it is a planning step that I keep coming back to, and I say, no, really, keep at it, keep trying, is that the reason why it doesn't work, when it doesn't work, is because we are trying to make our ideal happen instead of planning, using it as a tool that shows us the time that we have available. We try to make the time that we want become available. And it doesn't work that way very well, because a lot of times we aren't really masters of our time in the way that we would like to think that we are. So looking at your week, you have to pay attention to the interruptions. Because if you have appointments or obligations, different things during the day, you don't want to start a project that's going like the clothes swap, that's kind of involved and kind of a mess, You're going to take some time when you have only 2 hours at home in the morning and maybe 2 hours at home in the afternoon. It's like, it's not going to happen that day. You just have, so it's a tool for being more realistic about what we are expecting to fit in. If you're going to take a trip and visit friends or relatives, let's like block off those days and make sure that you are reserving time for unpacking, doing the extra laundry, that reorienting back to home afterwards. It takes time, but most of the time we don't budget for that. So the time budget is like a money budget where you don't get to decide that your car will never break down. So you don't have to budget for car maintenance because you don't want your money to go to that. So you're just not going to budget it. That's just a way to make budgeting not work and to feel like you're in emergency mode. It's the exact same with a time budget. You have to have margin and a budget for normal, regular, real life, like the fact that trips require packing and unpacking, and that's going to take time. So you have to recognize that and allow for that and not double book yourself mentally thinking, well, yeah. And then we'll just unpack like magically. But actually I'm going to spend the whole day like doing whatever I want, doing this project. We're going to unpack and do our seasonal clothes swap on Friday. And just Friday we'll be done. I'm like, no. To make it realistic, you have to say, okay, like really, what's involved and how long is that actually going to take? So as you are picking things to go into your actual prep week, so moving from the template into more specifics, estimate generously how long you think your projects are going to be and have some kind of idea looking at your calendar how much time you actually have. Do they fit? Are they even close? Yes. So when do you prepare for prep week? A little bit, I don't know, personally, I'm always like looking forward to my next one. So I have right now already a running list for the things that I would like to do. So it's basically going into just my notes to self, the kind of ongoing brain dump. But that is brain dump phase. So I'm going at it thinking, okay, these are all the things that I would like to have happen. And then it's usually during my weekly review, the week before the prep week, where now I'm looking at that brain dump list that I came up with and fitting it in kind of to my template. And I have, for some reason, it wasn't on the printer, but it's pretty much just the same list, except you only get 3 for each category. And I fill that out. And that is my prep week plan. Where I go from the list, like, okay, I want to put away the snowsuits and I want to menu plan for 6 weeks. Those things, as they come up in my mind, like, oh, I would really like to take care of that. It's like, I'm not doing that now. So I think, well, maybe I'll do that on my prep week. It just goes down into that kind of running list brain dump. And then I'll evaluate and select, because I know not all of that is not the actual to-do list. I'm going to have to slim that down, choose the priorities, make some hard choices, and make an actual list for prep week. So that happens either at a weekly review the weekend before prep week or Monday morning of prep week. It's the first step of prepare at that point. Okay, Laura has a good list of questions to help with the evaluate. And actually the list, really the evaluation step is a lot like a weekly review, except it's an interval review. So if you look at the sheet for a weekly review, brain dump, that we're going to be doing later this afternoon, just kind of expanding those to the whole last interval instead of the last week, it also works. Okay, so I'm going to try to work through some of these questions as quick as I can and hope that you all feel more prepared mentally for your next prep week. Although I know, I feel like mostly I just rained on all of our parades because I know what we really want is for everything to magically happen in our prep week that we would like to have happen. But in reality, it is making hard choices and choosing to spend our time deliberately with what's going to be most effective for us, which takes some thought, and it takes humility is what it is. It's not thinking that I'm as awesome and capable as I would like to think that I am. It's like, okay, I need to be a good steward with where I actually am, with what I actually have available, take care of the actual needs that's my responsibility to take care of. So that means things like laundry and cooking, maybe playing a game with my kids, that kind of thing. That's not getting in the way of my prep week, because my prep week is not about me and me getting my time to do what I want, but it's just a time reserved to take a bigger perspective and evaluate and plan and operate a little bit more in big picture mode, so that during the interval we can be focused and engaged and present, because we're not popping in and out of big picture mode, present mode, haphazardly, but it's a deliberate decision that we make. We step back and we make a plan, and then we move forward and work the plan. And we step back and make a plan, and then we deliberately move forward to work that plan. And the better we can get at that, and that is a skill, it's not something that just magically we just start doing. It's a skill that we practice and improve at over the long haul. All right, let's see what the questions are. My problem with prep weeks is trying to do too much. Yep. You and me and everyone. So that's where looking at the actual time available and plotting out, okay, be realistic about what you're choosing and where it's going to fit in your week. What about a prep week when you can't give it a week? So you can definitely arrange it so it's a prep weekend or a long weekend or a day, especially if your intervals are shorter. The other thing, it really depends on, how your weeks flow, but it doesn't need, your prep week doesn't need to be off everything, which I think was part of the problem with calling it a break week. Instead, it's like, instead of trying to move forward and work the plan, continue just on, we are using the pockets, the chunks of time that we do have discretion to use in certain ways in this big picture planning mode, instead of nitty gritty working the plan mode. So it can definitely, again, but you have to choose the things that maximize getting the most use out of the time that you actually have. It's not like you're going to be able to do everything that you want to do, whether it's a day or a week, but you have to look at the time you actually have available and then choose the things where you'll get the most bang for your buck moving forward. And then some people then are answering these in the comments too. So if you asked a question, definitely hop over and see what other people are saying there. Because like Stephanie and Crystal have both shared there about their shorter prep weeks. How do you discern how much time a job will take? I tend to think that things will take less time than they do. Yes, I do too. That's definitely sometimes a personality thing, but it's just practice and being realistic and always overestimate rather than think about how, instead of thinking about how much you probably might be able to do, you think, okay, what's the most important thing? And, maybe time yourself doing them so you can start to get a more realistic perspective. It has to kind of be a focus for a while. So that might even be an interval focus that you choose, is to be noticing or maybe even investigating, like by taking notes, using a timer, how long things actually take. That was a big aha moment for me when we moved from our previous house to this house, where in the last house, in both houses, the main level where we, the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, all that, it's all on the main level. But it went from being 800 square feet to more like 13 or 1400 square feet. And yet in my mind, I still thought that I could sweep or vacuum, clean the floor in about 5 minutes because of the layout of our previous house. That was a pretty realistic, I could get the traffic area really quick like that. And it just was not possible. But it just mentally, I thought of it as a 5-minute job. And then would always be sweeping when people came in the door. So I actually just timed myself sweeping the main level and realized that it took like 15 to 17 minutes. So go through and actually figure out how long things take. That's a project that's very valuable to do. Can I get the worksheets? Yes. So an email is going out 1 hour before each workshop that includes the downloads. And then these replays are going to go into Work the Plan with the worksheets again. So you'll get them. How often do you incorporate prep weeks? Mine are once every 6-ish weeks because my intervals are 6 weeks long, and then I take a prep week. Some people do a month and then with a prep day, so they're shorter. And then some people do 12, but still break it up. So they think of it like planning for 12 weeks, but take a week or a long weekend in the middle for a break to break it up and get a little like time to clean around the edges, basically. But it's very flexible and it's all part of interval planning. So if you look in Work the Plan on interval planning, it's all there. Do you use your usual dashboard for prep weeks? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It kind of depends on what my focus is. Sometimes my focus for the prep week is really honing in on my routines and like proving they're possible. And then sometimes it's like, well, this is just off the board for the week and I'm like redesigning it or something. Then I might have a few iterations to be as I'm trying out a new system or setup. But basically, the prep week, I give myself permission to use the plan as I want to, or if I don't want to. But I usually have the list of the big 3 that I want to do, things I want to do that week. But usually I'll tweak my planner at some point. And so I'll spend some of the time messing around with that. And I give myself permission to do that during prep weeks only, because in the interval, I have to just commit and just do it, even if it's not exactly what I wanted it to be. I've never planned for a prep week. I need a down week between interval and prep week. Sometimes we do need a vacation, and that's, but the reality of life is that we aren't going to get the vacation time that we think that we would like to have. So when you feel like you need the downtime, and be looking at your week and saying, am I taking a Sabbath, a weekly Lord's Day where I'm not trying to get ahead, or I'm not trying to do another project day, but it's just a day of rest. Like, am I taking a day of rest? And if you're not, then don't be surprised if you feel like you need rest, right? I was like, well, there was a design feature there that if we are ignoring, like, we shouldn't be surprised that there are consequences or effects of that in our life. And then sometimes, that's why vacations are a thing. So, and I think that it's very valuable to take a day, like a Saturday or a vacation, however long that happens to be, with a friend or with your family that is screen free. Because I think that a lot of that distraction mode, like, we need to feel recentered, and that takes actual time off of devices. But too often we think I need a break, and so it's just basically tuning out, and that's not really restorative. So when you feel like you need a break, think about something that would be actually restorative. Might be a walk, might be hiking, but it's probably not going to be catching up on Netflix. Yep. Okay. So that's it for this workshop, and I will see you in about 2 hours to do a weekly review together. So come with that review sheet that you'll get by email again if you didn't get yesterday's email. That'll come in about an hour. And that's just a brain dump. That's like a guided brain dump sheet. And then come with your calendar and whatever planner you use, even if that's just going to be a plain sheet of paper for next week. All right? I will see you then.